Before we jump into this review, I'm just going to put this out there. This is a very positive review, and I know that a lot of you are going to watch this and just be like, this guy is a Samsung knight. He would defend anything Samsung does. Those of you that have been on this channel for a long time know that that's absolutely not true. You actually know that, if anything, I am biased towards Pixel phones. I really tend to prefer them. And yet, this is going to be a very positive review. If you watched Flossie Carter's review of the Z Fold 7, I'm kind of feeling the same way he felt in the first like 5 or 10 minutes of the video, where he's talking about how it's almost like a bad thing when you're going to review a big brand phone that you really love, because you're just, the whole time you're thinking, I really like this phone, and it's going to be really annoying to hear about how I'm biased and it's all nonsense. It's just actually a really good phone. So there's my little disclaimer. With that being said, let's get into it. All right, guys, as you can see, I published my unboxing and first impressions of this device, the Galaxy Z Fold 7, about 1 week ago. That means I've had it for about 1 week, and it is finally time for me to deliver my full review. Now, in this video, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on, is it better than this phone? Is it better than that phone? Is it better than maybe this phone? Because those questions are so incredibly varied and nuanced. It's just really hard to answer that kind of a question. And I'll give you a perfect example of that. It's, kind of like a microcosm of this issue. Think about the cameras on these devices. Just that one subject is almost impossible to answer, because you could simply say, well, yeah, okay, in this scenario, this phone has the best camera, but if you're at a certain zoom range, maybe it's going to be this phone, but if you zoom a little bit further, well, then maybe it's going to be this phone. But hey, if it's low light, well, this phone has the biggest sensor, so maybe it's going to handle it the best. There's just so much nuance to these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about the Galaxy Z Fold 7. I'm going to tell you what I think is good, what I think is bad, and what I think is somewhere in the middle. The only device that I'm going to kind of compare directly to in this, in terms of like, should I buy it, is the Galaxy Z Fold 6, because I think that there are plenty of people who have a Fold 6 and they don't know if the Fold 7 is enough of an upgrade. And to those people, I want to make sure that they are keenly aware that if they trade in their Fold 6 towards the Fold 7, they will get $1,000 at time of recording. So really what we're talking about is it worth going from Fold 6 to Fold 7 for about $1,000? And for those people, it's going to come down to, I think, really a couple of big factors. And I think that the biggest one might be that cover display. As you can see here, the Fold 7's cover display is definitely not only wider, it's also taller, but it is a wider overall aspect ratio. Now, it's not like this super duper colossal difference. Like, we're not talking about the difference between like the original Pixel Fold and like the Z Fold 4 or something really, really dramatic like that. But there absolutely is a difference. The Fold 6 was really close in terms of like being a normal phone for me, but the Fold 7 really does take that up to a different level, where it really honestly does just feel like a normal phone. I don't think about it at all. I do wish that it was a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, but you guys know how much I love the first gen Pixel Fold, so like I just yearn for a device that's like this, but that's never going to happen. So I just kind of use this quick cursor app to reach the top of the screen, which I've talked about in several different videos. It's my preferred one-handed mode, and I've just kind of gotten used to it. And again, like I said, it just feels like a normal phone. Then of course you also have the fact that the new one is definitely a lot thinner and a lot lighter, and to me that makes it just more comfortable overall to use. I think that those are going to be like the biggest factors for most people. The cameras are similar enough, the battery is similar enough, the software, again, similar enough, that I don't think there's really much to talk about there. So that's up to you. Then, of course, there is this elephant in the room, the removal of S Pen compatibility for the Galaxy Z Fold 7. If you are a big S Pen user, then the Z Fold 7 may be completely a non-starter for you. Yes, you could grab one of these capacitive pins, and that's going to allow you to use your phone, but all that's doing is simulating the touch of a finger. It's not the same thing. You don't have the same features. You can't scribble on the lock screen. There's myriad of things you don't have that you did have with the S Pen. So for me, like I've said a million times already, I wasn't a big S Pen user, so I don't really miss this at all. But your mileage may vary. It depends on how important this is to you. That trade-off that was made, they removed the S Pen digitizer, and that allowed them to make the ultra-thin glass layer inside the screen 50% thicker, which in theory makes the phone more durable, and apparently it also helped to make the device thinner. So that's the trade-off that they made. You might not be okay with that, and that is, like I said, definitely worth mentioning. Let's talk about the build quality of this device. And honestly, in a word, it's fantastic. It feels really, really good. And we've also, recently learned some very encouraging things, like the fact that this inner screen has been rated for 500,000 folds. That's like a decade worth of folds. I mean, that's absolutely astonishing. We should also put the Fold 6 next to the Fold 7 for some of this, just so that you can kind of get a general idea of that difference as well. We also did see in the Jerry Rig Everything video where Zach literally took this thing and bent it backwards, like really quite far. He bent it about that far in the wrong direction, and the screen did not fail. Now look, I'm not one of these people that thinks that his videos are like super duper meaningful. He was able to snap the original Pixel Fold in half. He then snapped the Pixel 9 Pro Fold in half. And guess what happened in the real world? No one's phone snapped in half. If you're not a big strong man physically, actively trying to break the phone, you're not going to break it. But I will say that seeing this phone bend backwards and the screen continue functioning was pretty impressive and was definitely encouraging. I'll also say that this device, I would say more than maybe any device, the Oppo Find N5 might be there in a similar territory. When I hand this thing to people, there is a wow factor. People, as soon as they touch it, they will often literally say, wow, because it is so thin and it is so light. And then when it opens up, it really does just blow their minds that is where folding phones are. So there is a wow factor when it comes to this device. I have almost no complaints about this thing at all. I would say one teeny tiny thing that you're probably beginning to see people talk about on the internet, and it's something that we talked about with the Pixel Fold, and talked about it with other devices, and it's up to you if this is a big deal or not. I'm just gonna open this thing up naturally, and then we're gonna look at it. You may notice, if I can get it to focus here, that it is not perfectly flat. If I give it just a little bit more pressure, we're talking about a degree, right? Like, this is such a small amount of not flatness. And yes, people are actually complaining about that. So to me, absolutely not an issue at all. Not worried about it, but I do want to mention it. Talking about this cover display again, people for some reason do have this perception that it's still like really skinny, but it's not. There's some sort of an optical illusion going on here, and I can kind of prove it to you. I've done this in another video, but we'll do it again. If I take my calipers and I measure edge of screen to edge of screen, and then I compare this to my Pixel 9 Pro Fold, you can see I did not change it, but it is effectively the exact same width. If I come over here to the Oppo Find N5, we are talking about a difference of maybe like a couple of millimeters. Let's go the rest of the way. We went from 65 to 67. So it is not this super narrow screen anymore. I don't know why. I keep getting comments about how the screen is still too narrow. Too narrow compared to what? Compared to these other foldables, it's basically the same. Again, like I said, maybe my only real complaint about these phones, shorter and wider would have been my preference, but this is normal phone territory. And when you take this phone out into the soupy, miserable outdoors that we are currently cursed with, you'll see that the screen's brightness is absolutely fantastic. This is the Z Fold 6, and when I did these comparisons before with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and the Oppo Find N5 and the OnePlus Open, it routinely, consistently was the brightest screen outdoors. Don't worry about the ratings that these OEMs give for their screens. They aren't real. Take them outside, see for yourself. And the same thing is true with that inner display. Again, we are in direct sunlight, and that is absolutely readable just fine. We are to the point now where screen's brightness, not really a problem anymore, guys. It's also worth noting that for my money, Samsung now has the least noticeable crease of any device around. You can see it there. If we come over to the Fold 6, that is obviously a really big difference. And if we come over here to the Oppo Find N5, it does look really good, but you've also kind of got this like crinkly look to it as well. To me, the Fold 7 is doing this the best. Of course, what good is a fantastic bright screen, which is what we have with the Galaxy Z Fold 7 here in the middle, if the speakers are trash? And that was the problem that we had with the Oppo Find N5. In their pursuit of radical thinness, they downgraded the speakers to the point that they just really weren't very good at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to play a little bit of music on all three hopefully without getting hit with a copyright thing, and we'll see what we got. Slight change of plans because, as expected, we did run into copyright issues with this one. So we're just going to do Crab Rave, the one everybody goes to for this exact reason. And then after this, you're going to see what I said about the song I was going to play, but it should all still apply just the same. Hopefully that comes through, but if it doesn't, I'm just going to tell you what I am hearing. So of the three, the Find N5 is quite clearly the worst set of speakers of the bunch. It does not have any sort of like depth or bass. It has no punch. It just doesn't have enough volume. They're just not good speakers. The Fold 6 is quite clearly the best of the bunch, and the Fold 7 is somewhere in between. Basically, I think the difference between these two is if you take that sort of punch and bass and fullness and volume and you dial it back about 15%, something like that, you probably have the Fold 6. And for me, it's not as good as I would like, but it's more than good enough, and it's not the Find N5. So let's talk about the battery life. Obviously, this thing has a 4,400 milliamp hour battery, and that had a lot of people freaking out because it's not any bigger than the Z Fold 6. The screens are getting bigger, so surely the battery life is going to be significantly worse. But in my experience, that is just not the case. This is the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and because of that, some more efficient software may be in there as well. The battery life has been basically the same as my Fold 6. If I click on this here, you can see the usage over, from day to day. So here we are today, we're at 77%, and I have about 2 hours of screen on time. So you could realistically take 2 hours and multiply that by 4, so I'm on pace for over 8 hours of screen on time. And if you go through these day by day, go through my use, okay, I use 92% of my battery, I got 6 hours and 42 minutes. I did end up charging there at the end of the day, and I did have a little bit of a charge there in the middle of the day. But you can see all this, I'm not hiding this from you. You can see exactly what the use was. You can read all of this for yourself. For me, the battery life has been more than adequate. Is it as good as the Oppo Find N5? Does it charge as fast as the Oppo Find N5? No, absolutely not. But for me, is it more than good enough for my use? It absolutely is. And it also just so happens that no matter where I am, I do have the ability to charge my phone. I've got a charger at my desk, a charger in the living room, a charger in my car. Wherever I'm going, it's super easy for me to be driving to wherever I'm going to, plug the phone in, and you're probably going to get a decent little chunk of your charge back. I do wish that the battery was bigger. I wish that they used silicon carbon and that the charging was much faster. But as it is now, it's not something that breaks the phone for me. It's not really a problem at all. It's more just me saying, hey, for $2,000, I wish we had the best of the best. For the cameras, I'm not going to spend a ton of time in this video just simply because I did post a dedicated camera review that is much, much longer. And so if you want to know a lot about the camera, you should just go watch that video. I'll put it in the description down below. But what I'll say for this video, because I do need to at least say something, is that the camera has been absolutely fine. The primary sensor that is a 200 megapixel sensor, it is 44% larger than the sensor we had last year, and it absolutely shows. Photos have been detailed, they have been accurate in terms of shadows and colors, maybe just a little bit of stylizing going on there, a little bit of boosting going on there, but nothing that's crazy at all. The ultra wide looks solid as well. It does have larger pixels than last year, and I think that among the other foldables I have, the Find N5 and the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, that ultra wide is probably the top ultra wide among them. And the telephoto is just okay. At 3 or 4x, it's fine. When you get up to 5, 6, 7, more extreme views, things do start to look a lot like an oil painting. That is really the only weak point on this camera system, because let's be honest, that primary sensor is on paper better than the Fold 6. It's better than the Find N5. It's better than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. The only sensor that really beats it was the OnePlus Open. It's a physically larger sensor, but it should beat all of these. And in my testing, in particular in video and in sort of lower light scenarios, it does a really good job without leaning really heavily into processing, artificial smoothing, over sharpening, all of the things that Oppo tends to do that I really don't like, that a lot of you are actually okay with and really do like the way their photos look. I don't. To me, this thing takes really, really nice photos and really, really nice video. And one other quick thing to mention is that the motion blur issue that many people have experienced with Samsung phones for a long time seems to me to be largely addressed, and that is a really welcome improvement. And then we have the software experience. And look, I know that One UI is not everyone's cup of tea, and there are definitely some things about it in particular visually that I would definitely like to change. But you can't really argue that this is not a very mature, very well thought out version of Android with a ton of useful features. And it runs really well. This can't possibly be an exhaustive software overview because the video will be 3 hours long. I might even beat Flossie Carter's 2-hour-long review of this phone. But just to name a few things, how about stackable widgets? I love that. I think that is super, super useful. Samsung phones have their own tasker built in where you can create these little routines that I think can be incredibly useful. Some of you guys have shared your routines with me on social media, and it's crazy what some of you have come up with. That's awesome. While I'm not a huge fan of the Now bar as it lives on the bottom of your lock screen, I find that to be completely useless. I do really like having it up there in my status bar. When I have a song playing, I can tap that and open this up and hit play, pause, or do whatever I need to do. The animation looks really, really good. This is something that you're going to see in Android more broadly, and Samsung had this first, and there are so many things that are like that. How about Samsung DeX? Pixel users, we're getting very excited now because we have our own desktop mode coming. Well, this thing has DeX, and it's been around for a long time, and it works really well here. Of course, Samsung still has one of, if not the top multitasking suites around. You can split screen with 2 applications. You can split screen with 3 applications. We'll just use Firefox. We'll drag it down there into that bottom corner, but you're not done there because I can also have a floating window on top of all of that. It can be resized to whatever aspect ratio that I want. I can toss it off of the screen. Let's go back to just having 2 applications, and now they've added 90-10 split where I can drag this over, and now I have a full screen app, and if I click over here, I have another full screen app. This is basically a straight up clone of Open Canvas or Boundless View. The only difference is I can only do this with 2 apps and a floating window instead of with 3 full screen apps like you can on those other devices. But for me, this is more than close enough because I pretty much only ever multitask with 2 apps at a time. I'm rambling. There is just so much to like about this software. I could and maybe just will talk about this software, all the things you can do with it, for like an hour straight. There's just so many things I could mention. I love the fact that you can enlarge folders on your home screen, which allow you to directly click on that icon to launch that application. It basically allows you to have this like artificially enlarged grid of app icons, but only in certain spots where you want them. It doesn't mess with everything else. I think that's awesome. You have good lock and all of the like thousands of things that you can do inside that application with all of these different modules like multi-star and home up and camera assistant. There's just so much you could do with a Samsung Galaxy phone. It's just insane. And like I said, somehow all of that remains surprisingly well polished, which is something that you can't really say is true for some other foldables. I think Color OS and Oxygen OS are both very good, but they are not polished. There are many little quirks, little bugs, little things that just drive me a little bit crazy, and none of that stuff's present here. So guys, like I warned you at the top of this video, it's probably going to come across like me being a bit of a Samsung nut, really not having anything too crazy negative to say about this phone. But that's just the reality. I just happen to think this is a phenomenal phone that only has a couple of very slight problems. I think that the telephoto zoom is one of them. I do totally understand why people want a larger battery that charge faster. I would put that into the bucket of things that definitely need to be improved. But for me, beyond that, it's like as good or better than every other foldable that I've ever tested at virtually everything else. And then it has those killer additional features like DeX that for me make this one of, if not maybe the best overall folding phone I have ever used, and unequivocally the best folding phone that Samsung has ever made. So guys, go ahead and hit those comments down below and talk about how much money you think Samsung paid me for this review. They didn't pay me anything. It would actually be a crime if they did pay me and I didn't disclose that. It's literally illegal. Also, you can talk about how you feel about this phone. Give your thoughts on it down there as well. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.